A warm welcome to Wesley Impact. Later on in the show, I'm going to be talking about some words of Jesus from Matthew 7 about the choices and the ways that we take. We're going to take a look at the work of Wesley Life Force and all it does to seek to inform and people facing the challenge of suicide. And now I'm glad to welcome Kezia. Kezia's home is in Cardiff in Wales, but she's been travelling the world, and for the last few months she's been working at Wesley Mission. Great to have you with me, Kezia. Kezia, I've only said your Christian name because I'm going to ask you to say your surname. Kezia?
It's Nyakojo.
Now that's a real Welsh name, isn't it, really? So tell us where the roots of that name is from.
It's not Welsh. My father's Ugandan.
Ugandan.
Yep.
So that's an African name. And Kezia has a biblical root to it.
That's right. I'm named after Keziah, the second daughter of Job. I'm the second daughter, so...
Oh, right, so that's lovely. Yeah. Now tell me, your Welsh roots and your African roots, there comes a point in time where, like so many people, where a family comes together, where one says, we're going to go back now and learn our... So when did that happen, that you first went to Africa?
I was 20, and as you said, my father said, I've not been there for some time. He'd been in the UK 20 years or so, 20, 25 years, and he'd not been home. So enough was enough, and he rounded us all up. And we went back to Uganda for the first time. Not
the usual kind of holiday for many of the children, you know, from Wales.
No.
So you went there. So tell me, just as an impression, because people have impressions of places, you know. And Africa's a place where people have impressions, or Africa's like this. What was your first feeling about Africa?
Huge community, really, because everybody came out to welcome us. It was my immediate family and all of the family around, so it was just huge community.
And a sense of belonging, even though you'd never been there before?
Certainly, we were made so welcome. Yeah. We had festivities for a week or so, you know, just welcoming us back.
Yeah, and tell me, and was it far more, a far better place to go to than you might have thought some people would have imagined it was?
Well, certainly for us it was. We were visiting family, and you always feel safe and secure visiting family. So for us it was the best holiday ever. We saw a lot. We met so many new people. It was a great experience.
So tell me about yourself, a little bit about your work. You studied at Manchester University.
That's right.
And what is it you've wanted to do and have been involved in?
Well, I think growing up with dual heritage certainly influenced my decision to study the social sciences. I always heard from my father about stories from Uganda, about the people he grew up with. My mother travelled a lot with her father, who was in the army, to Malaysia and some of the Asian countries. I always heard about others, really, and I wanted to study more about people, the societies, their economies, sort of the way they organise their lives.
And ultimately to try and make some kind of difference in the world. Kezia, I'm going to come back to you in just a moment, but we're going to pause for a moment to welcome our performer on the show today. Louise Hayes is singing one of her own songs. It's called You Lift Me Up.
When I'm all alone, like a trampled rose lying on the ground, there's a voice I hear that is calling out my name, singing, I will hold your hand and give you strength. You lift me up where the eagles fly. Safe in your arms I am. You lift
To commemorate 200 years of faith and pioneering care in Australia, Wesley Mission has released a publication documenting its work in the community.
Everyone needs a little rest. Everyone needs a little joy.
For more information on Today's People, Today's Story, you can contact us on 02 9263 5555 or email us at impacttv@wesleymission.org.au.
Louisa's details on how to find out more about her music is going to be on the website all this week. I'm in conversation with Kezia, who's travelled the world, went to study, was concerned about the world and how to understand it better. But you have a concern for maybe things like international aid, development and all that area. That took you back to Africa at some point, didn't it?
On 2 occasions, actually. Just from being around my village in Uganda, I ended up volunteering for a period of time at a centre where women with HIV/AIDS were supported and encouraged to go back into the community and actively participate. So I spent some time at this centre. Ultimately, our aim was to get these women back into work at a nearby sewing factory. But they needed the support, they wanted the support to be able to do that.
The challenge of AIDS is a very real one and was at one time considered the big issue for the whole of Africa. I mean, there are some good signs of hope now, aren't there?
Oh, this was a very positive experience, this one particularly. These women were the transformation in their spirit when they knew they had the support of people to go back out and actively participate was amazing. The difficulty was changing the attitudes of the wider community.
Is that because of fear that people have?
Yeah, there's a stigma still attached to HIV/AIDS. So to try and change the attitudes, educate, about the disease, that was the most difficult. But overall, it was positive. We saw a real transformation in spirits, in these women's lives.
Now, you came to Wesley Mission. Did you just see it advertised, a job to work at Wesley Mission?
I was with an agency and they pointed me in the right direction.
That's good. So have you enjoyed it?
Oh, tremendously. I love working with people. As we've discussed, I studied international development. I love working with people. And I get to see so many different people on a daily basis at Wesley Mission, chaplains or members of the public. I speak to so many different people on the phone. And
sometimes people come in for help.
Oh, yeah. There are lots of people. If I'm not speaking to people on the phone, then people do come to the offices themselves and ask for, assistance with their welfare, and we happily provide. The extent, the reach that the mission has been truly amazing. Has
that been something that surprised you, the kind of...
Yes, because I didn't know the reach that the mission had. We provide assistance in hospitals, hostels, centres, counselling centres, accommodation. The reach is so wide, and I was surprised.
And do you think this experience of travelling around the world, you're going to go back at some point and you get your feet on the ground,
at some point.
But do you think this will help to inform the future for you?
I think I already knew that I wanted to work with people, have a people-based career, and I think this has helped to solidify it. I've really enjoyed my experience at Wesley, working with the people, my colleagues, and the general public, and I think it's helped to solidify what I want to do further on, work with people and help those less fortunate.
But as I do, there's as much of that need in Cardiff as ever there is anywhere else.
Oh, definitely. I'm massive on telling people, the development starts at home, helping the community starts at home, and again, that's what Wesley does. It helps Sydney, one of the major cities in the world. When we talk about development, we don't have to go to foreign countries or third world countries. We should always try and develop the immediate community and the others around us, no matter where we are.
Kezia, I wish you well as you travel to the Philippines. I know you're going to Darwin, another great city in Australia where we have friends of the programme. And I know that that will be another insight into another aspect of life. And I hope that you've been blessed by your time in Australia and that it's given you a window onto the kind of Christian work that we do that can make a difference to people's lives. So thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme and being willing to share with us and with others something of what makes you tick and your heart.
Thank you.
We're going to be back in just a moment.
It's been 200 years since the first Methodists met in Australia. To celebrate 2 centuries of faith and pioneering care, CEO and presenter Reverend Dr. Keith Garner takes us back to where it all began.
But we don't begin here at the heart of London. We begin in a town in the north of England.
In this fascinating narrative, Reverend Garner chronicles the history of the life and times of the founder of Methodism, John Wesley. This fresh and thought-provoking documentary takes us on a journey throughout the United Kingdom, beginning in John Wesley's hometown of Epworth.
John Wesley was born here on the 17th of June, 1703.
This 1-hour DVD travels onto his education years and beginnings of social justice in Oxford, to his final years in London. For more information on John Wesley, the man and his mission, call 02 9263 5555 or email us at impacttv@wesleymission.org.au.
Wesley Life Force holds a memorial service for families and friends to join together to remember loved ones who have been lost in suicide. More than 500 people joined us together at the Sydney Opera House last year. Let's take a look at that particular event.
Suicide is a major issue for the Australian society. More people take their lives by suicide than die in car accidents. It's a major community issue, and it is something that as a community, as a society, we need to consider how we respond and how we support those affected.
It's important to give yourself permission to talk about how you're feeling. It's important to give yourself permission to talk about your grief.
We gather in quietness to acknowledge the importance of this day and how we want to be a people that look out for each other, that care for one another. And maybe you don't even have to say very much, but just the acknowledgement that we're here together and that we are not alone.
Yeah, you push the sun right up in the morning.
Suicide does not discriminate. It does not care for race nor creed. And it found its way into my world. Friday, the 28th of November, 1997, began like any other in my young 23 years, little knowing at that time my life was about to change forever. My 2 dogs were sitting outside the garage door and did not run to me like they usually did. John's car was still sitting under the carport when by now he should have been at work. As I walked past the garage window, I looked in and noticed that the light was still on. There was a foreboding that this day was not going to be the norm. With each step I made towards the garage door, my heartbeat was twice as fast. And the world stood almost silent, as with trepidation, I opened the door to witness nobody in this world should choose to see. My young husband had done the unthinkable. He had taken his own life during the night as I lay asleep. And today, whilst nothing that anyone says can bring your loved one back to you, knowing that you are not alone and being able to share your innermost thoughts and feelings without being judged can be enormously beneficial in the lifelong grieving process, the excruciating loss we call suicide.
Today we come to give thanks to those we love, to share our pain, and to acknowledge we're not expected to understand everything. And if you're at a place of deep pain, don't leave this place without knowing that there is love for you too.
You really gave this life something. Ooh, you really gave this life something.
Well, welcome back. Once again, I'm in the Sermon on the Mount. I've referred to the Sermon on the Mount on a number of occasions, and I'm actually in a chapter I've looked at before, but this time earlier in that chapter, chapter 7 of Matthew, verses 13 to 14. And I want to read this very, very short but powerful piece. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Now, one of the styles of the New Testament in the Gospels is that of comparison. And on this occasion, remember when we talk about the wise and foolish builders, we're comparing between different surfaces and foundations that are laid in life. But the comparison this time is between two ways. And we do have to make choices in life, and the options that are presented to us in life are not easy. And we have to face them, and we have to do something about them. It would be so easy to go the popular way, to follow after a way that everybody else seems to make the one that's easy to go after. So the broad option might be the popular one, the one that most people choose, the one that perhaps has more winnings in it, the one that seems to have more plus about it. It seems to have all the things that we might enjoy in life. But it's the narrow gate, says Jesus, when he begins to bring it to a focus. It's the narrow gate that eventually leads to life. Now, that narrow gate is an important one for us. Now, I don't think when I read a word like narrow, I want to interpret it in terms of you don't eat ice creams, you don't enjoy things, you never go to the cinema. It's not that kind of narrowness, but it is that particular focus on the things that matter most in life. You know, there are times when in my own modern Australia, I look around and listen to things that are happening, and I think, gosh, the narrow gate is definitely the one that's right here. It will be so easy to follow after that which everybody else follows after, and don't have any convictions that stand out, anything that you live by that defines you and makes you very different. Jesus made it quite clear that those two ways are ever before us, and they're choices that we must make. We're not forced down a way, though it is so easy if you don't resist and you don't say to yourself, I'm going to make sure I go the narrow way, to get herded down that broad way and follow after it and follow the way that is definitely not leading to life and that which is best. Together, we need to really focus on our own priorities in life. You know, it's very, very hard is the question of priorities. I think it's one of those things that happen in our lives when we reach a maturity, that we actually start making choices. And choices are so difficult. We'd like other people to make them for us sometimes. I think when we're young, we prefer to have other people, our icons, the people we follow after. They're the choices that we make. But there comes a time when we must make our own choices. When Jesus took Peter and a few disciples to a very important place, Peter talked about what other people said about him. And he looked at Peter and he said, what about you? Who do you say that I am? Don't just follow the crowd. Make your own decision. Make your own choices. And you can be then certain of that life. Now, the kingdom of God is so important in our lives, to follow after the ways of Jesus and allow his kingdom to impact, give shape and meaning to our lives. But to really follow the way of the kingdom, to be drawn into that near way, will sometimes mean choosing the narrow gate. Now, choosing the narrow gate can mean that our friends think we're rather odd at times. It can mean that we're out of step with what other people sometimes think is the most important thing in life. but it is still worth choosing. It is the way that leads to life. And again, I refer to the words of Jesus. Jesus came to bring life, and life in all its fullness. Now that life makes all the difference to us. If you and I are prepared, when we come and are confronted by that particular way, it's there, we've reached the fork in the road, we've come to the place, we've been driving down a country line for hours and hours, then we reach a point. It's either this way or that way. And I think that lies in the gospel. Choices about values, choices about direction, choices about decisions, choices about what you will live by. The choice is yours. Are you prepared, if you're given the presentation of the broad way that most people follow or the narrow way that leads to life, in choosing the one way that you can be absolutely certain will bring you peace, is the narrow way. And the narrow way is the way of Christ. Why not make that choice? Because you'll never, ever regret it.
If you would like to know more about today's topic or for more on Keith's message, contact Keith by writing to Wesley Mission, Post Office Box A5555, Sydney South 1235, or email impacttv@wesleymission.org.au.
Thanks for joining us. You saw a little of our Life Force Memorial Service in 2010. It's being held again this year on Thursday, 12th of September at 12 noon on the boardwalk at the Opera House. Do join us. We leave you with endless praise, singing, "You Raise Me Up." Goodbye and God bless you.
When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burdened me, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so